Auntie Emma driving? Oh no!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tea with Crema. My name is Kris. I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by my best friend, Emma.
What's up, y'all?
We're super excited about today's episode for so many reasons. First of all, this is the physical closest that Emma and I have been in almost a year at this time. So,
Literally.
it's almost been a year. We're still 2 time zones apart, but that's better than the 14 from before. So, in case anyone was wondering, Emma is back stateside. So, any
Backstage,
um,
right?
any assassination attempts, you don't have to go to Japan.
Hold on,
So,
just a second. Why are you giving away my secrets? Why are you spilling the tea on my secret life? That's not okay. I could have sworn you signed some kind of agreement that you're not supposed to say anything about that.
dun dun dun. It's okay. You made it through your wedding, and there were at least 7 assassination attempts there. So,
On my life, goodness.
goodness gracious. Clearly, your security detail is working overtime.
Yeah, I gave them a break today. So if there's assassination attempt today, it's because I gave my security detail a time off.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, today's episode is a reflection episode from what has been happening in the past year, not like in the world, because no, I don't want
That's too
to.
much.
It's too
That does
much.
not spark joy.
We're just gonna focus on like me and Emma, honestly, because yeah, the world is just not for me to reflect on at this time. So if you were following along with the Tea with Crema, about a year ago, Em and I both kind of made some big old changes in our lives, undertook some life and career changes, and it's been a year. We haven't really talked about it. And so I think it's important, especially when you have those big, monumental, life changing moments, that you take some time and figure out what went well, what could have been better, would you do it again? Are you going to keep doing it? All those fun questions. Before we get started, Emma, what tea did you bring today?
I am drinking whatever is in my sister's cupboard. She's a coffee drinker, so she doesn't have any real like tea. There is a separate like jar of tea next to it, so I kind of had to like dig through. So I have no idea if this tea is expired. I don't know how long it's been sitting there, but yeah. So shout out to my sister. It is a Tazo tea. It's called the Zen tea. It's a harmonious blend of green tea with lemongrass and spearmint. It's quite delightful, honestly. I mean, I would drink it. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. What are
It's
you
really
drinking today?
Today, I am drinking a Sips by tea. It's called Sun Shower Spice, and it's by the Rainy Day Tea Co. And I'm pretty sure I've done another one of their teas before, their cloudy chai. And today is an herbal tea with ginger and apple and black pepper, sweet blackberry leaves, chicory, cinnamon. It's a lot.
There's a
It
lot
is.
going on.
It's a lot. And when it says brightly spiced, they just meant it's spicy. This tea is spicy.
Like spicy, like hot spicy, or like lots of spices spicy?
Like when you put a little too much black pepper on your food. So
Oh,
it's not like, because black pepper to me isn't like burn your tongue
spicy.
spicy. It's
Yeah,
that like
it needs some
un,
flavor.
it's uncomfortable, like prickly kind of spice. And so that's what this tea is. I think also it's like a ginger tea. So
Oh, so it's like hella spicy on top of that.
when they tell you sun shower spice, that's what this was. All spice. I wouldn't do it again, but it's okay.
This is fine. This is fine.
To get started with our episode, we got to start just in case anyone's like jumping in right now and they're like, what are you talking about? What happened? So we're going to give the TLDR version. What happened a year ago? What changes are we talking about? Like, what are we actually referencing? And what kind of brought those changes along?
So kind of like when you start a new season of a series and they give you like that really short recap. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching The Umbrella Academy again, or right now, and it's season 3. I was like, what the heck even happened? And so then they give that little like short thing in the beginning. I was like, yes, yes, exactly. Okay, so that's that. Is that what we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
here we go. 1 year ago, I moved to Japan. 1 year ago, I also got engaged. 1 year ago, I left everything in Texas, including my new fiance and all of my
And your
family
mama.
and my mama, everybody. and moved to Japan, had never been to Japan, don't speak Japanese, and decided to just do it because when else am I going to be able to live in Japan? So I'm currently still planning on going back to Japan after I'm stateside for the summer, going to be teaching still science, and then I just added a new class to my workload. So I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, what were you doing 1 year ago? 1 minute, go, Christopher.
1 year ago, I was finishing my fourth year of teaching and had just done all of that Teacher of the Year stuff, which I'd resolved at the very beginning of my career that once I got Teacher of the Year, one time for the one time, I was out of the classroom, had resolved to go out of the classroom and was like, well, I guess I'm not qualified because it used to be that you had to have the 5 years. And life said, no, wait, we got you. And so I was able to kind of make all of that happen and now moved on to be a testing coordinator, still at the same school, same campus, same kids, a lot of the same coworkers, but a different position, a different set of responsibilities, and more work days. More work days.
Sounds like a scam to me.
And it's weird because like I knew that going into it, but the practical application of more work days still caught me off guard.
You knew it, but you didn't know it until you were in it, huh?
Yeah, like no one, I didn't actually do the math between 187 and 210.
Which it does not sound like a lot, but 23 days is a lot. That's a whole extra month, isn't it?
Essentially.
A month and a couple of days?
So yeah, there were some moments where I was like, wait a second. I feel like this was thrown upon me. I've been a little scammed a little bit. So that's what happened. I just made a transition. I moved to a new apartment to kind of celebrate moving into a new role, just as a little miniature transition. And that's where we're at. So here we are. It is June, almost July. I think we can safely say, again, you're back stateside. I have actually stopped working for the summer. I'm actually done. And so it's a safe time to actually just kind of look back and say, what a roller coaster, a journey, while also navigating this, like still doing the podcast, trying to figure out all of the recording and editing and releasing from 14 time zones away, all that fun stuff. So, of course, I always like to start with the highlights. What are the things that really went well, that you really enjoyed? I would say, try to keep it to a minimum number. But honestly, if you had a great year and you just want to talk about the whole thing, great. It's technically also as much time as you need. So you do you, boo.
This year was honestly one of the best years I've had in a really long time. And I think that was also really needed, especially after those 2 years of teaching through the pandemic. We were in that 2020, like, it felt like a war zone, honestly. Teaching through the pandemic and then post-pandemic, which we're still not in Japan, still should not be in a lot of the world, but it is what it is. So this year was so needed for me as an educator. I felt like it definitely renewed my sense of enjoyment for the job. Like, I'm teaching now at a completely different school, completely different kids, completely different country. I really do still miss like being in Texas and like teaching the kids that I was teaching beforehand. But I was already making that transition out regardless. So it was going to be either a year left in the classroom or I needed a change. Like, I was already burnt out. And so this year was definitely a year of refreshing. So I had a really good year. Teaching went really well. And so I think that one of like my biggest highlights, I would say, was just like personal and character growth. I feel like beforehand, when I was living stateside, like I could not do anything by myself. Like I always needed to drag someone with me. And it was normally Kris or my mom or Isaac. And I could not do anything on my own. And being in Japan, I was like, I had to get out of that mindset because I couldn't just hit up Kris and I couldn't just be like, hey, let's go to Target. First of all, there is no Target in Japan. So that's going to be one of my struggles. But you know, it was like those things where I had to really push myself out of my comfort zone. And a lot of people think that I am extroverted, and I'm really not. It's just that my introvertedness gets really awkward and it becomes very social, but it drains me, and I cannot do it. So it's been definitely a year of growth. I think that was one of the biggest things. Um, Another highlight is I got married 2 weeks ago, so that was a pretty big one. I'm hopefully going to be able to bring my new husband, Isaac, back to Japan, hopefully by October. We're just waiting on our marriage certificate now and visa stuff. So, but that has definitely been a highlight, was coming home. And I don't know if we're going to do like a recap of the wedding episode, because we are planning on having our larger wedding next year. But just shout out to my family, especially my sister, for like getting everything done. So literally when I came in that Friday, I did not have to worry about a thing. Like Monday was our wedding, and I was so stress free, like was living my best life. I was like, wow, this is how every single wedding should be. And my sister was like exhausted, stressed. She was like, this is terrible. Let's never do this again. But everyone really pulled through for me. So just shout out to them for doing that. And yeah, I think that's some major highlights. So yeah, number one, taught for a whole year, made it. Number two, made some really good friends, and you know, found my like family in Japan who really held it down for me. Got married. Podcast wise, you know, we really did make it work as best as we could with a 14-hour time difference. So also shout out to Kris for being so patient with me as I was trying to figure that out as well, because he was also in a new position. So yeah, that's some highlights for me. Give me your highlights this year, Christopher.
In terms of positivity things related to a career change, it stretched me a lot professionally. I developed a lot of, or began to develop a lot of skill sets that kind of went unused or underutilized in a classroom setting. You spend a lot of time refining like classroom management and execution of lessons and other things of that nature. And even though I had done some professional development and led some of those teams, I think being a full-time staff member who is ultimately more so in charge of working with adults than directly with students now, it's different. It hits a little bit differently in terms of how you approach your day-to-day. I really had to figure out how to have conversations with people in a positive light. I would imagine this is closer to people who have like a more 9 to 5 traditional job, wherein you're given projects, you're given deadlines, and it's really up to you to make it all fit together and to figure out, well, I need to get these 8 things done, and each 8 things has its own set of deadlines and its own set of report people. And okay, cool, it's on me. I just got to figure out how to do it, while also, you know, still being in a school setting, which still has that like unpredictability factor, because at the end of the day, I did not have a classroom, but there are kids everywhere. And kids got needs, all the needs. And so just really figuring out how to still be flexible, get all of my stuff done, work more so with adults and project management as opposed to classroom management, I think was my biggest thing. And so it was a lot of fun. And then I also really pushed myself to be more, I guess, social, out of the box while I was doing this. And so I recognized that teaching is just one of those things that can get really, really draining if you're not being intentional about recharging. And so I tried to make sure that I was doing at least one major intentional social thing to recharge every month. And I think I did pretty well in that regard. And so there's a lot of learning, a big old learning curve this year. There were so many times where I was like, man, if I had known to ask this question ahead of time, I definitely would have. But now I didn't know that I didn't know this until I didn't know it. And now I don't know. So what do I do? But, you know, I guess that's a lot of positions. It's hard to be prepared for everything when you've never experienced it.
You didn't know what you didn't know until you Didn't know it.
Then you got to figure out how to know it.
I thought you did such a like you it was so funny to see both of us going through this past year though, because it really did feel super parallel, right? Like up until this point, we had been very much so in conjunction with each other, right? We had both been started teaching at the same time. We were both going through kind of like those first year like things like that, going through those burnouts together, going through pandemic teaching together, like figuring out how best to like show up for our kids. And so it's been really fun to see both of us kind of just like figuring our ish out together 14 hours apart. you know.
But with your new job being 14 hours away from literally every person ever,
Any important
I
people.
I would imagine, there are probably some struggles that went with that, both anticipated and unanticipated. I'm sure that there were the obvious ones, being in a country where people speak not English and you don't speak Japanese, also being even from California, 12 hours away from someone in the same time zone and trying to figure out things like FaceTime and
Yeah.
keeping up with the Alatinis and all of that fun stuff. I would imagine those are probably the more predictable challenges that I'm sure we can cover a bit. But were there any struggles that you ran into that you were like, wait a second, this is not this was new. I wasn't expecting this thing to be difficult now.
From California to Japan is actually 16 hours.
It's more.
Because so that actually did help us, like in terms of my family that was in California to talk, because it was earlier than when like you and I would talk, because time zones are weird. So like you would be going to sleep, but I could still like call my sister and it'd be like 10 o'clock here or 11 o'clock, but it'd be like one or two in the morning in Texas. So it was a lot of things. I think one of the biggest struggles, which I did not anticipate, was low key like the loneliness. And I think it's more like a loneliness in terms of like I don't speak the language and I like had to really figure out things on my own, which did make me more independent. So then coming back to the States, like me and Isaac trying to like figure out our dynamic again. We fell into it pretty easily, but that was one of the things I was like most worried about. I was like, like now I'm like, if y'all know me and Isaac, like I literally ask him to do everything for me. I'm such a princess. Like I'm literally like, can you go do this for me? Can you go do that for me? And so like when I first came in and I was like doing all this stuff, he's like, can I help you with anything? And I was like, oh, I mean, yeah, I guess you could. I was like, I learned I could do things on my own. But I think definitely one of the biggest struggles was learning to say no. Because in my previous position in Texas, I was very much so that yes man. Like the admin could always depend on me to like, hey, we need to start this committee. Can you do that? Yeah. Can you like make this presentation? Yeah. Can you present on this? Blah, 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 blah. It was very much so like I could do all of those things. And then going into my new school, I am the youngest faculty member. And so my friend that's already there, Rosa, had like given me, kind of guidance and advice. And she's like, when you come in, you're going to be fresh blood. And everyone wants fresh blood because they know that they're going to come in with ideas. She's like, and that's going to be a lot. She's like, so prioritize your self-care and understand that you can always say no, right? And she's like, and you can always ask to have more responsibilities in the upcoming year, but this is your first year. You don't want to burn yourself out. Like you left Texas to not be burnt out. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. And so in the beginning of the year, I was asked to do a lot of things. And at a certain point, I had to just be like, I can't do this. Like, I'm new. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how to live in Japan on my own. So, like, I said no to a lot of things. And it felt so good to, like, leave work when I was supposed to leave work. My work day is from 8 to 4. And to leave at 4 has been honestly life-changing. I forgot to add into my highlights. I became like a low-key like backpacker / trekker. I'm now an outdoorsy gal. I've been on 2 trips so far. So I think that qualifies me to say that. They did ask me to come on to be like a full-time, like teacher leader. And I was like, let me think about it. But I think that definitely helped me to realize like how much stronger than I thought I was, because it was more of a mental strain than it was a physical strain. like, yes, we're like camping with all of our equipment, right? We're going through the forest, we're doing all of these things, and it's, you know, at the end of the trip it's like 30, 40 kilometers, and like I just never thought I could do that. And so being able to look back and like see these treks and things that I've done, I'm like, oh, okay, we out here. We're outdoorsy people now. We like to go into the forest and like set up tents and stuff, and we can like build a fire. Like, okay, ready for the apocalypse over here. Definitely was
We
not ready.
know we know the right clothing to wear. We don't fall down
Yes.
mountains anymore.
I mean, I did fall down the mountain. I bruised my rib really badly actually on this last trek. It still kind of hurts, and it's been a month. Isaac's like, you need to go see a doctor. I'm like, there's like no bruise, there's nothing. I am fine. It just really hurts. I can't like lay on it or anything like that. So, oh yeah, I'm like pushing on it right now. Still hurts. But
That's
yeah,
fine.
that was definitely like a struggle. It was a struggle for us to figure out like time zones, balancing that. Also balancing like keeping in touch with friends was so hard, right? Like I feel like you and I would kind of like FaceTime at random times, and then we would just talk for like 2-3 hours because we just hadn't talked to each other. And so, you know, that's definitely something I want to be better about in this upcoming year, especially with Isaac coming, you know, making sure that he's still like really staying in touch with his family and like doing all those things. And now that I've been there for a year, I kind of understand how to do that. So that's something I want to work on, is being better about checking in.
So since Isaac doesn't have an iPhone, how would he do that?
You know what? I have no idea. I just like, I don't even know how people with Androids even work outside of like anything.
Because I know like FaceTime takes data, which means if you're connected to
Exactly.
Wi-Fi, it works. iMessages, data. Wi-Fi works. When
Yes.
you were out in like not the cities and you didn't have Wi-Fi, things didn't really work as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's like international texts and calls, and
I
you
think
gotta learn how to
he would just be on
WhatsApp.
the apps. Yeah. So like
Hmm.
I ended up being online. I honestly had all the apps because like certain people use certain things. And I'm like, can everyone just like use one messenger app and just like be there? Because it is so exhausting. And they're like, oh, I WhatsApped you. And I'm like, I haven't checked my WhatsApp in forever. I was like, I barely even checked
Hmm.
my line. Can y'all just DM me on Instagram?
Pick something and stick with it. This is too much. Got 8 different messaging apps. Too many.
It's exhausting. Yeah. So I have no idea what Isaac's gonna do. He still has that same old Android because he
From
is who he
12 years
is.
ago.
It's fine. But yeah, I mean, you kind of already talked about it a little bit, that it was a year of growth, and it was kind of a year of you stretching and really coming into your own as a professional in engineering, in education. I was like, wow, you did
Not
a
engineering. Wow.
whole career shift in education. So like, what were any of the struggles, if you had any struggles in your new position and, you know, this whole thing?
Well, I think some of the big struggles were feeling like I had to rebuild a support network in a sense, because the reality is I've learned like in this position and kind of like as you move forward, it's really important that you are really making connections with people that you trust and are able to go through some of those like darker moments with, because there were definitely some times this year that I just really the spirit of Quitstober really got to me in March, I would say. So
Quick search.
really figuring out how to like shake that mentality of essentially like having that difficulty creep in, and at the end of the day I couldn't stop working. I can't just not do my job at that point. And so how do I then figure out how to recalibrate, recenter, find my purpose again, and do something with the negative feelings? Because ultimately I have found I'm just not that person that can just kind of put it away, put it away, put it away. Because when I do, then it stays there in a little backpack. And then the backpack gets heavier. And then all of a sudden the backpack falls and it all spills out, and then more stuff it comes to light, and it just becomes it's a whole experience I wouldn't recommend to anyone. And so just really figuring out how to build up people or find people that are going to be with you to kind of help mutually get through those things, even if they're not necessarily, ideally they're not going through those things at the same time, but even so, even if they're just a sounding board, and move on. And so figuring out that, and then I don't know, the world was not fun at all this year. In case anyone was wondering, the whole Brazil trip went down in very expensive flames.
They're
The
still kind of really
literally,
expensive.
yeah,
Dollar bills are just burning.
it's just burning. And so literally like the Brazil trip went from like $900 to $2,000 overnight. And now the little alerts that I get are, ooh, it's $1,800. What a deal. I'm just like, that's not a deal. That's not
That's
even
that's 100% markup.
literally 100%. And so to have done all the work, to get the passport, to have started to do the research about the stuff that I wanted to do, and then even going to your wedding in California ended up being, or would have ended up being like a five or $600 trip.
So exorbitantly like overpriced when you've come to California for less than $200.
Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe if I was a first time traveler and had never seen lower prices, it would have been okay. But to see all travel marked up by at least 100%, it doesn't really make traveling accessible right now. And so that I only went on one trip recently, and that was I was able to just barely make a trip to Fort Lauderdale happen around Easter. I guess because Miami's not an Easter destination. No one's like, man, family, let's go out to Miami.
You
And
know where the
so
Easter Bunny definitely travels?
Miami. So I was able to make that trip happen, but I like to go to other places and see people around the country, and it probably just won't happen this summer. Everything's really expensive. Gas is almost $5 in Texas.
You don't even want to know. It's like we were driving the other day and it was $6.99 in one place in California. And I was like, $6.99? Like again, let's talk about this artificial price gouging for a second. I know that we're not like a geopolitical podcast, but we definitely could be because we have some thoughts. But again, that does not spark joy to us. So we're not going to address it because if we do, it's just going to make us even angrier.
Just know at a base, we're unhappy. Unhappy. I'm not happy
happy,
with
Bob.
anything. Not happy. Ugh, where are my stakeholders that need to be outraged? This is nonsense.
I don't
So
understand
no,
it.
I think just figuring out all of those fun little things. It was difficult. It was a challenge for sure. But overall, how would you rate your experience, your time, your career change in Japan for the first year?
Definitely like a solid like 8.5, 9 out of 10. Or are we giving it a letter grade?
It's very much up to you.
Okay, let's give it a letter grade because I'm still an educator. I would give it A minus. What would you give yours?
A B plus.
Oh,
I think I did okay for the most part, and I was able to refind my purposes and like reground myself in the work that I want to do and be involved in. So that worked out and it was really nice. So solid B plus with improvement on the way. I think the second year will certainly be easier.
better.
It must be. Because
It
if it
has to
don't,
be.
let me tell you.
We are making career shifts again. So we will come
Nah,
back
for
again
real.
in 1 year. So, this was like our training wheels year. Next year, we're going to be riding the bike. So we will give you another one because then I'll be like 1 year married by that point too. You'll be
Mm-hmm.
2 years into your job. I'll be signing my second contract. So things are happening, guys. They're constantly changing. And I think that's the great thing about all of these changes that we're doing. So, as you know, as we like to end our show in our usual rapid fire question.
Oh, I have it. I have my question.
Do it. Do yours.
All right, my
Wait,
question.
hold on. Sorry. Pause. Your questions
Awkward.
are always way better than mine. So, can I go first? Because
Yeah.
I feel
It's
I
like
think we should
I
just
ask these really thought-provoking questions. You're like, "What's your favorite color?"
I'm like, if you could be any cheese in the world, what kind of cheese would you be? So let me go first because yeah, I hate when that happens and it like drives me nuts that I'm like can't come up with better questions. So
It's
I'm gonna
funny.
go first, and I think it should just be the standard that I always go first.
All right.
You've heard it here, everyone. The new shift is happening on the Tea with Crema. If you are coming for the rapid fire question, mine will always be first because it's usually a little bit weaker than Chris's, just standard. Okay, so I found this rapid fire question, and it's kind of rooted in the fact that I have not been driving for a whole year, right? I've been in Japan. I don't have a car. They also drive on the opposite side of the road, so I'm not going to get a car. Also, the public transportation is wonderful. It's cheap. It's efficient. So that's just what I'm going to use from now on. And so coming back to the States, I had to start driving again because California doesn't have a really great public transportation system where my sister is. And so backstory, when my nephew was about 1 or 2 and he was learning how to talk, it was when I was learning how to drive. And so the first time I was driving with him, I still had my permit, and I'm getting into the car and I'm about to drive, and they have a video of my nephew being a troll, and he's saying, "Auntie Emma driving? Oh no!" And he's 2 years old. Okay, he's like 2 or 3 years old. My nephew was very, very smart, very articulate for his age. Now he's 10 years old and still a little troll. And so I'm getting into the car for the first time to drive with all 3 of my nephews now, right? So now they're 10, 3, and 1. And we're going, and I have my dad in the car with me. And so my nephew goes, "Auntie Emma, are you driving?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have to drive because, we need to take 2 cars. There's too many of us, blah, blah, blah." I'm trying to explain my whole rationale. I'm getting into the car. I'm already stressed because I have 3 kids in the back seat. And then he just whips out his classic. He goes, "Auntie Emma driving? Oh no!" And I was like, "You little turd." And so then he's trying to teach my 3-year-old nephew. He's like, "Rocky, Rocky, repeat after me." And so anyway, that was my backstory. My question to you is, on the scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your driving?
7.
I would rate myself a 3, a solid 3. Sometimes a 1. Most times a 3.
That checks out. I agree with your rating.
I think you're actually a pretty good driver. I would say you're at least like an 8 or above.
Oh, okay. I think I'm a dramatic driver.
I
enjoy coming to hard stops with people who are in the car.
And he also drives stick, and so I think he just enjoys having people just meet, their nose to the windshield, but not actually going through it, just feeling like they're gonna die.
I really enjoy it. The funny part is that I don't drive like that when I'm by myself, only when people are in the car. So I really just enjoy like a little brake check moment every now and then.
Just to make sure everyone's awake in the conversation.
Hello, are you still here with us? So that's fun. Yeah, solid 7. I mean, probably a little higher, but easy 7 for sure. Easy 7.
On a good day, I'm a 5. That's like a really good day though.
When you know exactly where you're going.
Exactly.
There's minimal traffic. It's like early in the morning.
There's no highways involved.
Easy 5. Easy 5.
Okay.
Okay, my question today is, what is one of those classic go-to dishes? Like the easy ones, the less than 5 ingredient dishes, grilled cheese, top ramen on the stove. What is one of those like easy peasy go-to dishes that you still can't get quite right? No matter how many times you try it, you're just like, bro, I cannot figure this out.
Definitely grilled cheese. My sister makes a bomb AF grilled cheese. So does Kris. Kris also makes a really good grilled cheese. I'm just not patient. I can't sit there. I just I'm so hungry. And I think that's my problem. I need to cook when I'm not hungry. I need to cook in anticipation of me being hungry. I'm not patient at all. Like, I think I finally kind of made like a foolproof, like you can throw it in the oven and it'll be ready in 20 minutes. But if I have to sit there with the stove, it always comes out burnt. And I can't get over it. Like, I don't know. It's probably because my stove is on too high. I'm not going low and slow. But yeah,
it doesn't help that you like really crispy things anyway. So you're just kind of like, I'll make it. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. But then it always comes out burnt. There's a difference between burnt and golden brown crispy. So yeah, that is the one that I cannot nail. Grilled cheese to this day. What about you?
Interesting. Spaghetti and meatballs.
What?
I can't figure out the sauce to spaghetti to meatball ratio. It's always skewed very dramatically to one side or the other.
Too many meatballs, not enough noodles.
Like, or too much sauce, not enough any, or not enough sauce. Like, it just, I cannot get the ratio between the three. It's literally three ingredients, and I can't get it. Even with like the
The
vegetarian
pre-prepared stuff
meatballs,
too.
I can't
Oh
do
my
it. It just
gosh.
doesn't. It's always too saucy, or it's not saucy enough, or something's wrong with the noodles. Like, it's spaghetti and meatballs. I can't figure it out.
My dad makes such a good spaghetti and meatballs. I had to call him one time when I was in Japan and he had to coach me through it. But again, I'm not patient. And so I threw in the sauce way too early and he's like, "Were your onions translucent?" And I was like, "I mean, they're soft." And he's like, "But were they translucent?" And I was like, "Is it really going to make a difference?" It made a difference, guys.
It did.
It made
Onions
amazing.
are more biting if they're not
It made a
translucent.
huge difference. I was like,
Hmm.
I was eating it, and as I was eating, I could taste like the onion, and I was like, stupid, stupid translucent onion. I hate this. This is dumb.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, Emma, where can people find the podcast?
You can find our podcast on Instagram and Twitter at the Tea with Crema. Your girl will be the one moderating for now because Christopher is taking a detox. So if you want to slide in the DMs and let me know that you're interested in Christopher, we can set something up. Anyway, we are also on YouTube and anywhere else that you can stream your podcast. Just search us up, The Tea with Crema. If you'd like to buy us a cup of tea, you can find us on Venmo at The Tea with Crema, and we hope to see you next time. Bye. Doing my thing. What you doing my thing?